Hey everybody! Merry Christmas to those of you on the East Coast.
To the second, Merry Christmas, those of us here on the right coast.
Shout out producer Thomas with the immaculate timing of the stream. Welcome in everybody to the Christmas edition of Live with Fast Eddie Fear. If you're live with us, Central, Mountain, Pacific, any other time zone going west, it's still Christmas Eve, but you may also be watching this on Christmas morning or even leading up to locks. So wherever you are, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Good to see you, my good friend Eddie Fear. How you doing tonight?
I'm very well, and we're in syndication now. We're like Star Trek: The Next Generation. we're such a hit that you can catch us at 11 in the morning on UPN. No, and I can't let you get away with that one. It's not just thanks to producer Thomas. Thanks to both of you for starting a show functionally at midnight to support my very late travel schedule. And I think we can agree that this is entirely the fault of my wife. I don't know if she's listening, but anyhow, on like 3 days' notice, she's like, yes, and we're going to be traveling that. I'm like, no, darling, I told you I have a show on Christmas. I've been on air on Christmas 6 years in a row, I think. I have to, do the thing. And she's like, oh, everyone's got COVID anyway. You're not going to know shit. I'm like, factually an accurate take, but nonetheless, I've got, my job to do. Nonetheless, I'm getting on a plane I'm leaving to drive from beautiful Dayton, Ohio to Columbus, Ohio at 5 in the morning, getting on a plane at about 7 in the morning and heading out. So this was my availability, and both you and Thomas were kind enough to move your schedules around to coordinate with me, and for which I am very much grateful. So thank you, sir. Mazel tov, a blessing on your house.
Yeah, of course. Anytime, we're doing it for the people, Eddie. We had to get the stream out, and we had to, we got to accommodate everybody to the best of our ability. So we'll go for about an hour here. 5 games, of course, on this Christmas slate. I guess we'll knock on wood here that we do get 5 games played tomorrow. And if anything
we'll get 5 games played. I think
too.
It seems that we were most worried would just have not enough dudes have shored up enough and had enough guys come back that there was a conversation I would be surprised if there was any swappity do at this point. Not 0% chance, but I think Giannis will go out there and play. I think so. The 3 median games are the advertising sexiness for the NBA, the 2:30, the 5, and the 8. Those are the ones that are actually, I think, all actually on ABC. I could be wrong there, but those are the 3 that are considered the premier matchups. And it's not like getting to, Dallas and Utah or Atlanta without Trey and the Knicks are. I mean, you get the bigger market of the Knicks is something, but I would be very surprised at this late time if we got a cancellation. That doesn't mean somebody won't be able to play, but I would be pretty surprised. There aren't any teams without 10 guys that could really suit up. So for a game to be canceled, we would need like 3 people out with COVID in the next 12 hours, which I consider unlikely. So I do think we will have all 5 games go off, and all 5 games will go off at their scheduled time.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm leaning as well, but just don't want to jinx it or anything, because I want my full Christmas Day slate. And I think probably
I'm devastated. I'm going to be in the freaking air. I'm going to miss like the first 2 games at least. And like, we're going to land and I'm going to be like, tequila, bar, honey, unpack the bags. It's going to be a thing.
Well, the first game going off while you'll be in the air is the shorthanded Atlanta Hawks against the not so shorthanded New York Knicks, at least anymore here in the Garden at noon Eastern time. So, Eddie, let's start with the Hawks. And I guess this will be common practice tonight, as it has been the last week or 2. Reading off the injury reports here, the Atlanta Hawks, it's a lengthy one. Clint
Do we just want to go with who's playing?
I'm
serious. Normally as an exercise, when you do this, there's 12 to 15 people on the roster and 2 or 3 are out. So it is both it's a time saver to be like, these guys are out. But as far as just the inherent packets of information go, who is actually playing is more relevant information.
Sure.
And we're in this unique situation where those lists are roughly the same size. So I think it may be easier to say people we think will step on the court for the Hawks today would be Gorgui Dieng, Cam Reddish, Delon Wright, Skylar Mays, John Collins, Lance Romance in the Pants, Stevenson, Bogdan, almost skipped. Jalen Johnson.
Mm-hmm. That's all I got. 8.
Top. I think those are my 8 guys with minutes right now.
Yeah.
Westwood having succumbed.
I think it's only 8 active to my knowledge. Unless they called somebody up.
They have a. Oh shit! I think they have an active, and I'm not going to come up with it. Malcolm Hill?
He's out.
Is he out?
Hamstring. Yeah, they got 8. Yeah.
I know they pulled him up at the same time as Lance. I didn't realize he got injured. I guess he didn't go COVID, so I didn't notice it there. All right, 8 it is. Okay, so then ignore that entire first thing I said about games not being canceled. They're a guy from being canceled.
Yeah.
Like, it is the functional minimum. Or you can end up in the Robert Sacre conversation. Are you familiar with the game I'm talking about?
I maybe.
There was an excellent game where it's about what happens when you have
5
players eligible to play in the game according to the modern NBA rules. If you have 8 players and 4 of them foul out, shit gets extremely weird. So I won't go into that now because time. But if they lose a guy, we could lose this game if they are actually just at the 8. Is there really no one else? I'm going to check one more source, but that's very relevant to me.
And so one thought I had, and I approached the ranks like these guys will play and they'll be fine. Both listed probable, but both went out last night with injury. Those 2 guys being Cam Reddish.
Well, I guess last night. We're past midnight. It's weird. So it's last night for you. For me. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, Cam Reddish, Delon Wright, both went out mid-game last night, did not return, but listed probable here. Yep. So it did cross my mind, Eddie, that because they only have 8 with those 2 guys in, maybe they're probable and active because they are instructed we have to play this game by the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it's instructed. I'm sure there are some phone calls and not emails going around. And this is something that happens that do, like, I have a corporate job now.
Yeah.
And people will, Slack me a question or email me a question. I'm going to be like, yeah, you're going to call me for that one because there's just shit you don't write down. So, yes, someone at the NBA probably said to somebody in Atlanta, look, just like call him active, let him play 18 minutes. And that is an interesting part of this. This is obviously the team we're going to spend the most time paying attention to. To take sort of a heuristic step back, look at the slate for a second. This is the most popular team. This is the best projected team, depending what projections you're looking at. You're going to be looking at 5 of your top 8 players being projected from this team. And similarly, most of your most heavily owned players, you're going to be looking at James Harden, and a shit ton of these guys is going to be the top of your ownership. I think no matter who you're looking at, you're also going to get, I don't even know who gets in beyond those guys. I think your top 6 are going to be James Harden and 5 Hawks at this point. Might be top 5 are James Harden and 4 Hawks, but they're going to be massively, massively owned. So our question, my friend, is to talk about where we can guess that ownership is. And again, this is very difficult 12 hours in advance without any other news breaking.
Yeah.
But let's start by talking about Delon Wright. Now, you and I were both big fans of Delon Wright during our show on Wednesday night. He did not perform up to what we would have hoped. It was not dreadful, but had in the high 20s, mid to high 20s in fantasy points for 4,700 or something. That was not good enough. Similarly uninspiring play against Philadelphia, but left that game, I want to say 3 times. There was...
I think it was twice.
I thought he went like cramps, ankle or something. Now I may be getting some of his leaving and some of Cam Reddish's leaving confused, and I only saw the game once, and I was in transit. But again, if we look at 8 active players here, there is a huge caveat of minutes from him to other people. What I mean to say is I originally thought Delon Wright might be out and Wes Iwundu might be in, and that they would end up with their 8 or 9 players that way. With Delon Wright in, I think the ownership certainly comes down on Bogdan Bogdanović, and I think there is a minute ceiling there that isn't necessarily realized, and he doesn't get owned quite as much as he should. He can play a little bit of point guard, which is incredibly relevant for this team that has really one point guard in Delon Wright. I guess what I'm saying is I will be looking very closely at coaches' comments If I will be on the plane in our Discord, an international flight, so it has Wi-Fi, sending shit like, okay, Nate just came out and said this, that, and the other thing, because I think there is a very real chance that you're going to get some, he's not 100%, but he's going to gut it out. We have 8 dudes. And at that point, it's like, okay, both Bogdan and Lance get a little bit more interesting for what's going on here. So Bogdan was originally on like a 16 to 20 minute limit during
2 games ago.
During the Wednesday game, played 22. Then on the next day on the back-to-back, played 27 and some change. Now has himself 48 hours to rest, and I think gets owned like 10%, as opposed to some of these other guys who are going to be massively owned, maybe higher than 10%, but not nearly as owned as he should be. So I'm a pretty big fan of Bogdan Bogdanovic. I don't think he'll start. That would very much surprise me, but that's one pivot point I'm definitely looking at on this Hawks team. What else do you want to talk about? Obviously, we also lost Onyeka Okongwu.
Who had forward eligibility today. He was going to be, I mean, for me, the lock
my God,
of all
he would have
locks.
been the lock of all locks. That's amazing. We have center only Gorgui Dieng. I think he may actually out-own Cam Reddish at this point. It will be interesting to see which of those two guys takes the top spot for this team. I do think it is the two of them, both with numbers that start with 6. I have them both in the 60s right now. There are not a lot of other great must-be center takes. There's a lot of power forward centers who look pretty good, but there's not a ton of straight centers, and obviously you can get up to 2. So if you're playing on DraftKings, I do expect Gorgui Dieng to be remarkably popular. There is a question as to how much time you will get for John Collins at center. I don't think you're going to get anything too crazy. Like, I don't think you'll get Jalen Johnson at center minutes, but I think you're going to get Gorgui Dieng and John Collins at center. There is I have Gorgui Dieng for 32 minutes, in which case he is massively one of the best plays on the slate. I think he's 3,600, and I think he projects for 35.5 fantasy points, and I think the matchup is just great. I have seen other numbers as of, again, 12 hours beforehand that have him at 25 minutes, and I saw another site, 2 very popular sites, at 25 and 27 minutes. That would, in theory, cause him to be well under-owned if those don't get changed, and I don't know who else they think this team is going to really play a lot of at center. John Collins can play as much center as you need to in this matchup. You don't have to worry about Mitch trucking him or Obi Toppin coming in the second unit or just something bizarre like that. So I think you can play a lot of John Collins at center. In the Philadelphia game, he played 0 minutes at center. They played Okongwu and Gorgui Dieng full stop. That was it. They collectively had 48 minutes and 0 seconds between those two players, I think. So, but I do not think it is crazy to project Gorgui Dieng well into the 30s, and I haven't seen any great reasons for why he couldn't, other than he hasn't yet. So I think there's a ton of upside there too. And like, even if Gorgui Dieng was 60% owned, I would probably end up on top of that. And I'm a big fan of fading the chalk, but this is pretty hard to screw up. He can be a foul trouble issue. This isn't a New York team that is driving a ton right now. This, however much time he spends against Mitch. Mitch does not draw a lot of fouls on opposing centers. Like, this is trending towards very hard to screw up for me. So I can't in good conscience say lock button, which I only say about monthly anyway. On anyone 12 hours before lock, that feels a little bit foolish for a couple of reasons. But I do think, based on what I'm reading and seeing, Gorgui Dieng appears to be undervalued around the industry. What is your extensive, well thought out Gorgui Dieng take? I see you have him with the 10 rating on DraftKings. We obviously agreed on that for our daily rankings, available only to FTN subscribers. There you go. That was me shilling. Cut that shilling for the month. I got that 5 seconds out of the way. I'm a company man. Talk to me about Gorgui Dieng, because I do not see people quite as apoplectically excited as they should be. We're dealing with a slate with tons of super expensive players. Obviously, we can save that money. The functional value loss of playing a bargain center isn't really there because we don't have both Jokic and Towns and whatever the hell else going on. So talk to me about the gorgeous Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, when Okongwu got ruled out earlier today, he became. I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and say it. I think if I had was running my 20 lineups, Eddie, I would lock the Gorgui Dieng in this first game. I'm more with you. I had him just over 30 minutes as well, and even on like some of the other sites that I've seen projecting him for like mid 20s, like 25, 26 minutes, like he's still going to project fantastically at
But
that.
that's how do you expect that to happen? Like the
No,
Knicks
I don't.
you don't have to go big against the Knicks the way you go big against, say, Joel Embiid in Philadelphia or any of that, because they simply they're not quite as big, nor are they as internally balanced on offense anymore. Last year, where you had the years of Julius Randle, which is someone we should talk about a bit, it was a bit more important to be a bit beefier there. There were various matchups, including against Atlanta, we could talk about for a bit, where I would sort of understand that. But what is your 30 minutes of Gorgui Dieng and 18 minutes of John Collins at center? I don't know. So that's sort of my take there. So I feel like my 32 is even a little conservative. But again, projections in daily fantasy sports not as commonplace or homogenous as they have been in previous years, because there's so many things changing, and it's a little hard even for algorithms to keep up with all the variables, but they're still pretty close. And the real way to have better projections than anyone else is to have better minutes totals than anyone else. I think sites with 25 as like a median projection for Gorgui Dieng are either sleeping or understand something I don't as to how this team is going to run out its personnel. I have to allow that as a possibility as a scientist. Maybe there are other ways this goes, but it just doesn't seem very likely that they're doing anything but that.
I mean, from the slate, looking at the slate as a whole, I think that if I was, crafting an MME build, I would set a rule for no less than 2 Hawks in every lineup. They only have 8 guys. One of them is Jalen Johnson, who's probably not going to play a ton. So I mean, I have pretty strong ranks on all these guys, Eddie. D-Line and Cam Reddish also made it into the 10 ranks on DK. John Collins and 9, just kind of price wise at 7, 8. I don't think he's a must. I don't have as much, interest in getting to him as I do those other 3, but obviously he's still extremely strong. And you talked about Bogdan, but you look at Skylar Mays and Lance Stevenson. I think I would prefer Born Ready, but both of those guys are in play as secondary values.
Born Ready, I think Bogdan has a slightly higher ceiling, and I think they're a little more likely to throw him the preponderance of minutes. But obviously, the Born Ready value is entirely based on what we hear about Skylar Mays, who, again, I almost didn't mention on Wednesday because I didn't have anything to say because I wasn't sold, and he was 3,000 or 3,200 on the day, and we didn't talk about him until after. I'm like, yeah, he projects fine. I guess you could have ran him out there, and someone called me out for it, and then he had half a fantasy point on Wednesday, or one of the most anemic games you're ever going to see, apropos of nothing. Much better on Thursday. But his time seems fairly secure, and they're going to be forced a little bit smaller because they're preponderance of guards who are active players on the roster. But, Lance shot for garbage, but had himself 8 rebounds and 5 assists in that game. So, starting yourself with that 17, 18 fantasy points is a nice place to start. And, Guy can certainly make himself some layups. This is not a Knicks team that I expect to be imposing defensively, especially with everything they have going on. Worth pointing out, nobody plays today and tomorrow. There are no back-to-backs on the schedule today. No one played yesterday, and none of these 10 teams play again tomorrow, which is something else to consider in our various consternations and commentary here. I don't think it necessarily applies to Delon Wright, but there's questions as to how many minutes Giannis will play. And it's worth pointing out there's conditioning and coming back and officially and I think Giannis will play. But how many minutes is really interesting. I have him for 33. I think if it was not Christmas, I would have him for 32. It's really a thing where I think that does get stretched out a little bit. A, directly because of the fact that there are no back-to-backs, but then B, because it's Christmas and television and there are other various externalities here. Milwaukee's home. There are longer commercial breaks on Christmas than there are the rest of the year, which sounds dumb, but there's just more nascent rest time for a lot of these guys. So, oh my God, don't Embiid, my status is awake at midnight, which
It's funny to see the chat kind of stirring this late at night as I think some people file in and see, oh, look, there's a stream going on.
There's a show. Yeah, and again, thanks so much for you guys for moving this around. So let's talk about the rest. Let's go through the Hawks a little bit more, because I think man by man, I don't think you're playing Jalen Johnson.
Right.
I think the other 7 guys deserve a very real conversation.
Let's talk Cam Reddish, because before we started the stream, I was like, hey, I threw these ranks up. Look at them as we go live. And one of your comments was, I don't think Reddish would get a 10 for me. So could you explain that just a little bit more? Because I think he's really strong.
I think, well, look, we've obviously seen the ceiling.
Sure.
And very possibly going to remain the best game of Cam Reddish's career. And I think he is very strong, but everything, like we do GPP rankings, those rankings are to be used in tournaments. That is a lot of money for Cam Reddish. Now, I'm aware
in this role, though?
Can look, but well, what is this role?
Like 30% usage.
Yeah. I mean, there was 2 games ago he played 40 whatever minutes and took 23 shots.
He was on pace for almost 40 minutes last night.
Yeah. He got injured and came out, and there he took 13 shots in 28 minutes, which again would look at around a 20-minute roll. But you have the combination of very high ownership, the chance he's not 100%. Again, we'll be listening carefully. Reddish has always been a sort of a movable feast, has a really extensive injury history. I don't think it's irrelevant that he played 42 minutes on Wednesday and then got injured on Thursday. I don't think that's necessarily apropos of nothing. So it's just a combination of like his price is now, is he 5'4"? Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
5'4". He's 5'4" on DK. He projects extremely well for me. Okay. I have him currently at 38 minutes.
Yeah.
That is with a whole lot of not knowing this, that, or the other thing, but I think that's a very reasonable number. And for me in this role, he projects for about 34 fantasy points. What other, I guess it has something to do with what numbers you see and how much you think the role hangs up. And is he really a fantasy point per minute guy? In this matchup, I still have him obviously as division a little bit less than that, closer to 0.9. He's fine. I just find it more likely that something goes squirrely than he continues to, I would take under 20 shots and I would take under making half of them again. He projects just fine. I'm there in cash. That's fine. Cam Reddish deserves a spot in your lineup in cash. In tournaments, if he's really going to be in the high 60s, and again, and in the first game, I gotta say this again, this is an incredibly relevant thing for me. A Congo, I'm costing myself no money in a spot I don't really care about. Now I'm spending 5,400 on Reddish. I want some guys from this game. I just think that, I don't know, just the combination of things. I can think of more ways in which I regret having Cam Reddish than which, there's a chance he goes out there. It's Christmas. It's a very sexy game in the Garden because they're on the road, and throws up 50 fantasy points in 40 minutes again, and that's gonna look really bad. But the price is high enough now that if he puts up 40, I'm not kicking myself squarely in the face. And if he's 65, 70% on, I don't know, that combination of things, I'm a little more disinclined. There's no wrong amount of Cam Reddish. If you said I have 100% Cam Reddish, I'd be that's fine. He projects great. You'll get different somewhere else. I'm not saying don't play Cam Reddish. Okay. But a 10 for me is I think I want to be overweight on this guy, and he projects really well. And he projects really well, but combination of sort of nascent injury issues and not knowing what else is going on, and extremely high ownership, and in the first game, where being in the first game is always disadvantageous. And now we're dealing with all the other shit that can go on later in the day. And I like other guys from this game who provide direct leverage off of him. Just a little more excited in tournaments to get to the other guys for what it's worth. So it's a little bit splitting hairs there. And a lot of it has to do with where I think the ownership is. If nothing changes between now and noon, which is fucking impossible, but if nothing changes between now and noon, and he goes off at 65% owned, yeah, it's Cam Reddish. I'm gonna want less than 65%, $5,400 Cam Reddish. But
Two things here. What do you think he's going to be owned? Because I think we can put this on the board. I think I'm going to come in well under your number.
I think he's really highly owned, but I don't want to put any ownership on the board 12 hours to go. Because like as we saw last time where we split those, so as whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would take under my number. If nothing changed between now and then, I think he gets up to like 60%.
Yeah, I'm way under that. I think he's around 40.
Interesting. Let me look around the industry and see where else I can find numbers and see what I can get here. I got a 47. Someone with you. I got a 74. Yeehaw.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so again, I don't think we'll ever know the answer to this issue, but this has a lot. Like, there's a chance the game could get canceled or something. But it is a more fair bet because, in theory, no one else will be added to or removed from the pool. Like, if this game happens, it should be those 8 guys.
Right.
To do it, so it's a little closer.
Well, so and I think Herm showed up in chat talking about his top Hawks, and I wanted to bring this up about Bogdan, because he got up to just under 28 minutes, I think, last night. But when you look at the game flow, this guy was, I mean, unless I'm missing fouls here, and I'm not, he was, to me, very much still on a minutes restriction in the first half. He did not play a ton, and I think he got extra time in the second half because of those guards going out. I'm not super confident that I think he could play like 26 minutes.
I think that's possible. Yeah. I have him projected for 30 right now.
Okay.
I think 26 is possible. 26 would not shock me as a number. There's a chance this game doesn't stay close. There's all kinds. I mean, there's always a chance, and he's going to be one of the guys on the bench if this game doesn't stay close. And that's a factor into your math. If this game is 15 points one way or the other, there's a much better the hell shot that Bogdan is sitting on the bench. But there is similarly the chance that Delon is not 100%, in which case he's the best point guard on the team.
I don't think he's 100% either.
I don't think he's 100%. Well, he looked good in those 2 games. Like, I would honestly take him over Cam Reddish right now, just based on having watched several years of both of the guys and level of injury. But this is, I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. We'll hopefully hear something. There should
I think
pressure.
Watching beat writers too, watching them warm up, if we can glean anything from that, if somebody says, Cam Reddish doesn't look 100%, Delon Wright, etc., like that's going to be super valuable.
Yeah, I see her paying, attention here. Like, Bogdan is much more able than a couple of these guys to slot in at the 3. So if they end up going, super small, so like there's the bonus for him if Reddish is limited. There's the bonus for him if Delon is limited, which are really relevant things, to look at there. There's the bonus if they just don't want to put up with Lance, which I don't know how to say it any better than that. Lance is maybe the best athlete left on this team at 34. Like, I love Lance. You love Lance. Everyone loves Lance. But he's very, JaVale McGee, shit's flying all over the place. Like, I would not, if I found out at the end of the game, Lance played 14 minutes because they're like, So is 6K Bogdan even at lower ownership too risky for GPP? No, there's no ways to, like, the matchup is perfectly good. In 30 minutes, Bogdan can get you 50, and you're talking about, I assume, at FanDuel at 6K. That would not be out of play. I would need to see the position and look through the FanDuel a little bit more. Like, if there's 7 good value plays there, it gets dicier and dicier because of their structure to do it. DraftKings basically doesn't have positions. Like, you can sort of ignore positions for DraftKings. They are rarely, like, if you built your 100
getting close to that.
If you built, FanDuel's
getting close to that.
Right. Yeah. Which was a mistake. Well, sorry, let me rephrase. It sucks as a player because it was just something people didn't do well. Again, basketball is sort of a solved game. You can just algorithm it out extremely well. When you had to figure out, like, what's the positional cost of, there are only 2 good small forwards tonight. So even if they only rank for me at 5 fantasy points per dollar, and there are 8 power forwards and centers who rank better than that, it was worth spending up at small forward at a worse ratio because the opportunity cost was, like, there was just a skill point there that people couldn't figure out, and people didn't like it because they couldn't figure it out. So it sort of lost what I thought was a really interesting skill point when they went to the multi-position eligibility and stuff. But
with Bogdan there at 6K, Eddie, and you're like, I assume that his ownership's going to be pretty muted at that price, given Cam Reddish 5'3", Delon 5'1". He's the second most expensive Hawks player that's active over there on FanDuel. I would much rather take the chance on Bogdan on DraftKings at 4.7. But even then, I mean, we're going in circles here on Bogdan. I mean, I guess we're about 30 minutes in with 9 teams left. So let's flip to the Knicks side, where I think we've got a lengthy discussion here as well because of the guys who are returning for New York. We will get RJ Barrett in this game. Quentin Grimes also back for this
I don't
team.
know if we will get RJ Barrett. Sorry. RJ Barrett is still, I think, questionable with conditioning. I think last we heard was RJ Barrett is not COVIDed anymore.
He got taken off the injury report. He was on it last game.
Right. No, I got that. He's off the injury report, but I think our last comments were like questionable with conditioning. So I want to make sure
I think that was last night. I don't know if there's been an update, but I think the fact that he was questionable yesterday with conditioning, they sat him out, and then he got taken off the injury report is at least leading me to believe he's in and starting.
Okay, I think that's the most likely scenario, but and I'm going to do a little more digging around here.
Yeah, but, it's quick, and to Swervo, to his point, it's Quickly that is in that scenario today, unlikely to play, but has cleared the protocols.
No. My impression was, I think Barrett will. Okay, let me rephrase. I'm almost certain Barrett will play. He is a step ahead of Quickly, who may or may not play with Rose out, and there's any number of interesting things that go on in that backcourt with McBride, Grimes, Kemba, Burks. Like, there's a lot of things that go there. I think Barrett will play, but with Kemba's excellent play, there's a chance that they just roll him out a little slower, and it's not 100% to me that he starts. So there's because like Barrett himself is not necessarily out of play, and him starting radically changes to me how good Kemba is, for example, and exactly how this team functions. And so anyhow, a couple questions. Someone said, what was the injury with Delon? What did he leave with? Did it look serious? He turned an ankle. It looked fairly serious to me. I was surprised he came back probable the next day. We mentioned some Hawks that Kemba. RJ Barrett conditioning is still uncertain for Sunday, as a tweet from Underdog NBA. Again, that's sort of... Anyhow, he's a step ahead of Quickly. But for example, them putting Quickly back in the rotation for 18 minutes and Barrett and starting and playing only 30 minutes wouldn't shock me. Or continuing with the current starters and having Barrett come back and play 24 minutes off the bench wouldn't shock me. So again, this is something we're looking for comments on, was sort of my point. So how do we prepare for this? I will say I have a non-zero amount of a very low-owned Julius Randle, if I could think of this. Nobody's going to get there. Kemba just went the hell off. He's over $10,000. He routinely, especially when there was only Collins out there at center, handles Collins extremely well. He cooks Collins. He did not in the one game they played this year. I will look this up when I get a second and throw stats at people. But he handles John Collins extremely well when guarded by him, which will happen a non-zero amount of the time. So is it a priority? No. We obviously have, I think, Harden as your number one projecting spend up. LeBron as your number two projecting spend up. Plenty of interesting pivots in the tier of Steph Curry and so on and so forth. But Julius Randle, to me, I think gets owned 4%, and I would have something closer to 10, because getting sort of a Renaissance at home Christmas performance out of him would not shock me in this context. I will pull up some numbers because people are perturbing me. So this was off the head. So Randle and Collins. Sure, we will look at this. Okay, I got this year, they have last year, and then they have the playoff series, and so the playoffs more muted. 20-10-3, 23-10-7-2, doubled all 5 games of the playoff series. Not terribly impressive. And they made a real focus of stopping him, which they did again this year, in which he was, they played 1 game and Randall had a pretty anemic 8 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. If you look at the 3 times they played last year, Randall had 40, 11, and 6, 44, 9, and 5, and 28, 17, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
And this game will resemble that a little more than previous ones. Now, I can't project him for anything near the, God, I don't even know. I think that averages more than 60 fantasy points in the 3 regular season meetings last year.
Even going back, he's over 62 3/4 in 4 of the last 6 regular season meetings against Collins.
Yeah, I wouldn't be sure. And the other ones weren't bad either. If you go back a couple years, like I just have a real thing, like, do a spin move, Julius Randle. For whatever reason, Collins just does not handle that particularly well, and Collins has improved a little bit this year. Like, it's not all this. I'm not saying play, Andrew Bogut-esque 100% on Collins, but I'm saying I honestly think the field is in low to mid single digits. I would find myself at 10 or 15% because just the capacity is there. Not nearly as likely this year because, again, Barrett will probably be back, and Kemba obviously feeling himself right now, but. So long story short, that was several minutes on the why I'd have 10% instead of 5% Julius Randle. But there it is.
Yeah, he's my highest ranked Knick player on this slate. I really have no interest in getting to the rest of this team with how I expect these guys, RJ Barrett to return, Quentin Grimes to come back off the bench, Obi Toppin's minutes to increase. And I'm not chasing Kemba at that ownership.
And Burks at 7,800 now. Like, there's just they're not priced extremely well. So let's go with the except. And again, I think more importantly, assuming you can pay attention to the first fucking game. Yeah. Like, so just again, everything comes at a tax. We will simply call that. So for that reason, I'm generally fine with you to eschew this game, but we have to talk about Kemba Walker. Let's assume we get what we're going to get, which is 30 minutes of RJ Barrett starting or coming off the bench. You have no interest still in a 6K Kemba Walker who just dropped 70 at home. Feel like he's going to be owned, but I don't think he's going to be massively owned. I think he's going to be in the 20% range.
Really? I think he's going to be double that.
I'll take under 40%. I would have to sit here and think for a while. 30.
Yeah, I mean, I've had
20 felt low when I said it. I will check 2 other sources because I have them up from last time. I got a 17.5%, and I got a scrolling music, please. Can I find some excellent music? We're not going to do a whole lot of making fun of other people for their projections or stuff today because today is a pretty tough day, and especially like there's Christmas and holidays. I have a heart.
Let's be fair. I don't think we have our projections up yet. Kyle's going to get on that in the morning. So
7% here. So that's low. I think we can agree that the 7% on one of the sites I'm looking at is you got to do this shit the night before. It's 9 a.m. in this late goes off at 9 a.m. West Coast time. You want people getting up at 7:30 on Christmas morning. Can't open my gifts. I got to see what this site projected for Kemba ownership. That's a lot to ask. So you got to do this shit the day before. Well, all right. So we gotta talk about this a little bit. Well, let's say he was 20%. What would your opinion be on Kemba Walker? I'm telling you now, he's 20% owned. Nothing much changes. You can have RJ Barrett starting or coming off the bench, plays low to mid 30s in minutes. He's $6,100.
Still probably not interested.
Okay, well,
at best, matching the field. I mean, just I'm thinking about the first 2 months, or not. I guess he didn't really make it 2 months. The first 6 weeks of the season, where he was in this similar scenario and just wasn't really pretty. Like, how many times were we happy with Kemba Walker at 6'1"? Like 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah, but there are a few things that are different from then to now.
Sure.
One is that this is being tolerated for the moment, as like Derrick Rose is gone, and Emmanuel Quickley is not 100% if present at all, and RJ Barrett is, so like that all factors in there a little bit, and the minutes have a ceiling that they didn't have back then. Like we had no reason to think like it'd be split. So like what he was back then didn't matter. We were projecting him to split 48 minutes with Derrick Rose 24-24 or something close to that. So my answer would be if he is starting and not much else changes, and let's say we get news that quickly is out, if he's starting, how many minutes would you project him for? I think a fair guess is 36. And then how many fantasy points do you project him for?
I mean, a little under 36. I don't think he's getting 36 minutes. If RJ Barrett's back, Quentin Grimes is going to be playing minutes. Like, Tibbs does not want to play this guy.
I don't know. If he started, I had him at 36 minutes, and I had him at 35 and 3/4 fantasy points. So I had him
sounds about right.
Just eight. And it's 6K. That is not an irrelevant play. So I am not as harsh as you are. I'm not bending over backwards to play him. He's not one of my favorite plays of the day. But there's a real difference between the ownership and whether or not it's like 20% or 40%. I think 20%'s fine. I think there's a number of ways to go sideways. And again, my biggest objection is actually locking that money in.
And maybe I'm just not able to break myself out of thinking that he's going to be 35, 40% on. I just think people love fucking Kemba. They love, that sounded weird. People love Kemba. And people love the first game. Yes. And people love a guy who just scored 74 DK points.
And they want to run back with, sure.
Yeah. It seems like a really easy leverage spot to me where I don't think he puts up a number where you have to have him.
Sure. It's just interesting how he sort of took exactly opposite plays on Cam Reddish and Kemba Walker for the same reasons.
Well, Cam Reddish is they got 8 guys and the Knicks are adding guys back.
I agree. That's definitely a reason. And Cam Reddish plays a less valuable position and costs less. I mean, you got now Kemba, we're talking about landing between 20 and 40%, and I think that's the low and the high of it. And Cam Reddish, we're talking about landing between, I'll call 45 and 75 were the numbers we saw so far. So that factors in here as well. But okay, good convo, good chats.
Shall we go to Boston, Milwaukee? Anything else on this game?
No, let's get going as we are 43 minutes into the show and have discussed one game. In fairness, by far the most important game and sort of the game we know the most about, and then 2 teams that we can make some. But no, I think that's it for me with the nod towards Randall is I would like to see more than I think the field owns. And Kemba, it'll be interesting to see where that ownership shakes out and how popular he is. But let's move on to these other games.
Well, Boston, Milwaukee is the second of our 5 games here on Christmas. And we're going to have to keep our eyes on the news, certainly from the Boston side. Bruno Fernando, Enes Freedom joined a bunch of their teammates on the COVID list. CJ Miles also put on the COVID list. And I think Aaron Nesmith was added since the last time we talked about the Celtics, and they could return Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Al Horford.
No relation to the recently deceased Mike Nesmith of the Monkees. I went deep for you there. I went deep for you. Go ahead.
Jabari Parker, questionable, coming back from the protocols alongside Broderick Thomas, and then Marcus Smart, questionable with a hip, and Romeo Langford, questionable with tendinopathy of the Achilles.
Tendinopathy, yes. What is our current understanding on Horford?
Legit questionable is my impression. Right. I think it's just kind of conditioning, right?
A lot of that going around. I always find the conditioning conversations interesting because there are coaches who have recently spoken and literally said, once you miss like a game or two, like you're gone 48 hours, your conditioning suffers significantly. And you and I both played sports through college. I never felt it went that quick. Now, if you're telling me I have COVID or some sort of other breathing abnormality, that's a separate thing. And we listened to Jaylen Brown coming back from that. A number of other guys talk about, I need an inhaler, and there are any number of things. So don't misunderstand me. There's that. But there honestly, I have been surprised how frequently in the NBA I have seen like this guy's been out 5 days I don't think he can play 36 minutes, which again is in usually 4 shifts of 9 minutes or something like that. I always find that a little surprising. I have seen many an NBA workout, and it is insane the shape these guys have to keep. You know, you have the random Oliver Millers, but NBA athletes outside of maybe soccer players or football players who are just running constantly for 90 minutes. The conditioning these guys go through. You see some of these guys even come out of Division I colleges go in and they go through an NBA practice and go, holy crap, just 400 suicides up and down the court. But that being said, do you have any sense on sort of the conditioning talk? And again, Al Horford, not the same as Cam Reddish. You have 20-year-old athletes in the prime of their physical fitness, and then you have Al Horford who likes chocolate milk.
Yeah, and I haven't really heard anything on any of these guys coming back. Obviously, Al Horford, the most prominent one in terms of usability in daily fantasy, if he is active tomorrow. I don't know if it matters so much to me though.
Well, it matters to me mostly because if Horford is out again, I would go to Bob Williams again. Like you and I did the show. You and I did the show on Wednesday, and I mentioned 2 Celtics. Like other people may have asked about Jaylen Brown or Tatum, and they were appropriately priced. Brown's still very nicely priced on FanDuel, actually. Usually it's the third mention on the show. We do DraftKings, SuperDraft, the 7,800, I think, is the number for Jaylen Brown on FanDuel. That's fine. Feel free to get there. That aside, Bob Williams at 5.8 on DK and 5.6 on FanDuel. If Horford is out again, there is a real understandable correlation or negative correlation between the two of them. So putting Horford out again would do a ton for me. And so he got a big mention on Wednesday for me. I'm like, yeah, this Cavs team is going to really struggle on the interior without X, Y, and Z. And it was him and Marcus Smart were the guys I like. And Smart had 9 fantasy points in 5 minutes and then had 9 fantasy points in the next 30 minutes. But Bob was stellar throughout.
How many assists did you have for the Time Lord in that game? Because 7 blew me away.
7 was not what I was expecting. Not as many as Rolo on Wednesday, setting his career high with his 11 or whatever, including 6 in the fourth quarter, where he just got magic hands. He just yokes people with. So anyhow, I guess that was a long way of saying if Horford's out again, get yourself to some Bob Williams. It's not quite as good, but you can get 34 minutes, even a tough matchup. Bob Williams can give you 50 in that time and still in the 5s. You're seeing Harden at 60%. Yes, I think Harden is about 60. There's a colloquy going on between some of our subscribers in chat. 60% I think is very good. And I will check. I did early numbers, which are going to be meaningless. I have 61. The other 2 numbers I see right now are 50, which is going to be low, I suspect. I mean, kind of obviously, since I said that I thought it would be much higher, and 62. So yeah, we're all hanging around that area.
I mean, assuming Horford is in, which is how I'm treating it now, that he's at least going to be in there for some limited minutes. Do you have any interest on this team? I got really Tatum, Jaylen. If you want to take a shot on either of those 2 guys, they're going to soak up the majority of the usage for this team. They're going to play big minutes. And then I think Time Lord, kind of regardless at 5'8", is in play. Yeah. But I don't there's no priorities for me from this team if all these guys play Horford and then Smart, and obviously Langford can soak up some minutes there on the wing. So yeah, it's not a super exciting spot for me as we stand right now at 11:50 p.m. Central Time.
No, I think you got it right. I will always like Marcus Smart in GPPs when he is perilously owned low. I'm not super excited about it. You can go back to Langford just because he's very cheap, but he's going to compare poorly to Sterling Brown or any number of other value plays here. On their DK prices, neither Brown nor Tatum project as necessarily crushing those prices. I expect them to both be, again, very, very low owned, but appropriately so. So I don't have a great take there. So yeah, for me, it's probably Bob Williams, Marcus Smart, and then getting to match the field on the 10% Brown and Tatum.
Sure. Is Marcus Smart kind of is that like a Kemba pivot for you in tournaments?
Not even really that. It's a 5-game slate that does not project extremely well outside of one game, and so you just have random guys at 5% who can cost 6K and score 41, randomly sneak in there. But if I was in a Kemba pivot, I'm slightly more on Conley, I think, than Smart. If
Nice.
I was there,
So am I.
but that's where I think I would land up.
Well, how about this Milwaukee side? Because Giannis expected back here, cleared from the health and safety protocols. I would be really surprised if he missed this Christmas Day game. I believe still Dante DiVincenzo. I don't expect him to debut tomorrow. Listed questionable, but it's great to see that he's getting close. Also, getting Bobby Portis back in this game is extremely important for Boogie Cousins. And obviously Giannis coming back is going to, really cause the rest of this roster, at least on DraftKings with the way this team is priced. All these guys take a hit, and it's tough to prioritize guys from this game too. Like, I think Giannis might be my favorite guy to roster from this team as it stands now.
Yeah, I would go with that. I think he ends up being third owned stud. I think you're going to get a pretty clear trifecta of Harden, LeBron. I think Giannis comes in their third, pending any news. And again, this is just one example of how it's nice to leave money off. Again, all those other studs coming in even later games. So, but if you get news towards lock that like, he says it's 100%, we're going to try to keep him to 37 minutes. You'd be like, oh shit. And then get in there over. So again, it's a great day to pay some attention. But yeah, at their prices with, Milton still back and not necessarily 100%, Drew priced up into the mid 9s, sort of the minutes questionality between Grayson Allen with whatever the hell they're doing with his injury reporting and Pat Connaughton who got kicked in the face and Jordan Nwora and Dante DiVincenzo returning and Wes Matthews and Hood and Semi Ojeleye, #revenge. It is difficult to look at anyone as particularly sexy here. So you get Jordan Nwora starting again. You can have some at 46 on DK. I don't think you can get there. He's like 7K on FanDuel or some absurd figure. You can pat C, but the real interesting guys here are to me. By the way, the Wednesday show, someone told me we had a long conversation where we were talking about Drew Holiday projections around the industry. And one had like 42 and one side had 45, and me and one guy in the chat both had 49 and some change.
49.
You put up 49 and a half. I'm just saying, like, that feels good when you completely randomly happen to get it right on the nose. So that was fun. Jordan Nwora, Jordan Nwora, if he happens to start again at 4,600, at that point, I think you can fire a bullet at. But I think Boogie is the other one that's really interesting. He obviously can produce a lot in very limited time. And exactly what we think we're going to, obviously still no Brolo, but we're going to be getting back into some amount of Bobby Portis and some amount of Giannis. And this is a matchup where you can play all the Giannis at center. You don't have to go big against this Celtics team. So it's a little more dangerous than not for me, but it's really sort of a question of where we think the ownership falls. And I don't have a great sense of this. I think he ends up around appropriately owned in the teens, but he's been really good. I mean, you look at these last 3 games, he's getting like 1 3/4 fantasy points a minute. It's a good spot. And credit to him for continuing to, work on his game and pick up little contracts here and there. But yeah, I think Giannis and then Cousins is the next guy you sort of look at here. I don't think, we've had additionally Budenholzer has taken, last year was really aggressive with everyone's minutes, and obviously that was very fruitful. And instead of getting, like he was rightly pilloried and excoriated for letting Giannis play like 31 minutes in the playoffs for a couple of years before. Like, there was a whole lot of what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, I get it in December. Yeah. Fine. Have him play. Like, that's always a trade-off between winning a couple more games and having your guys a little fresher. There's the extreme one way, the Thibodeaus of the world where, Luol Deng, still curses him every night before bed. And then you have the extreme the other way, where there's coaches who are really, really gentle on guys, especially at Giannis's age. That seemed a little ridiculous. The guy was pretty well built. He probably could have played a couple extra minutes at this point. But this year he has taken a step back in that direction, and we've seen a lot with the recent treatment of Grayson Allen. He's talking about minutes a lot, and they do have a lot of depth on this team, especially for in the midst of COVID. Again, we discussed you have lots of guys you can throw 20 minutes at, from Ward to Connaughton to W-Matt to Hood to Grayson Allen to Semi Ojeleye to DiVincenzo coming back to. So, and you have three guys who can play minutes now. I think they even took our boy Sandro off, like he's available, I think.
So he is available.
Right. So, so there's some very interesting concern there. But, Boogie not out of play, even if you think he's getting 20 minutes.
Sure. That's not crazy. It's tough for me to get there, man. Like, to your point, with all those guys, with the more household names coming back, but also Mamu, there's just so many ways that, like, Boogie can absolutely crush your lineup tomorrow. But yeah, certainly not out of play. Anything else from this game, or are we going to, I guess, kind of the afternoon delight here? Warriors at the Suns.
Well, if you are watching us not live, so if you watch the version of the show delayed 11 hours that will have started 11 a.m. Eastern, careful, lock your lineups. You've got 3 minutes. So when in doubt, I think take less of this game. But hopefully pay attention pregame. Did we hear any comments about Delon or Cam Reddish not being 100%? And if so, increase your Skylar Mays, Bogdan Bogdanovic stuff. Didn't you say SGA would smash against Denver and he scored like 60? Great call. No. Actually, point of fact, I said the opposite. I don't know if this was a clever way to make me look bad, but no, what I said was I expected Aaron Gordon, if he was in, which he was announced in a couple hours before that game because he had been questionable, to guard SGA, which he had done a very good job at in the past. And so SGA at an elevated price didn't project that well for me. So when Gordon was in, I became less interested in SGA and said so. And then very surprisingly, SGA went the hell off. And then I went back and looked, and Aaron Gordon guarded him like the fourth most on his team. I don't know why they did that. That is pretty clearly a situation in which, but yeah, that was the Denver game, and they beat the shit out of Denver. Do credit to them, for a team that, may have lost a game by 70 something this year. But no, I said if Aaron Gordon was in, that would significantly reduce my desire to play SGA. So no, I just straight up got that wrong looking at the results.
So Golden State.
I got to answer it. So I'll pat myself on the back when I think I got something right. But that certainly, just looking at the results, did not function the way I really wanted it to.
One thing that's been a big change in the Vegas totals on all these games, Eddie, when they opened up last night, we did the FTN NBA podcast live stream previewing the slate last night. Nearly all of these totals are down like 10 plus points. So I don't know what was going on there. But now we're sitting at Phoenix 6.5 point home favorites, 215 over under in this one. And the Suns pretty much full strength for at least all the guys of consequence. Fantasy wise, Frank Kaminsky still out. Saric obviously out still with the ACL recovery, and Abdel Nader questionable. I kind of assume he's out. He's been out pretty much for like the majority of the last, 6 months that they've been playing basketball.
Yep.
Dealing with some chronic knee issues. But the Warriors side, Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, Damian Lee, Moses Moody, out.
Moses Moody. Yeah,
and obviously Klay Thompson, James Wiseman not back either for this team. Andre Iguodala questionable with that sore knee. So you've got Steph Curry 11-2, Draymond Green 7-3, and then a bunch of cheap value guys here. So I know we talked about kind of how we thought the spend ups were going to shake out with Steph Curry, I believe, in fourth for you. That's how I had him ranked ownership wise. How do you feel about him in this tough matchup?
Yeah, there was. I got a tweet question, which was a PM, which is very discreet, saying, "Quote: I was watching another show on. I'm not going to call the show, talking about the Christmas NBA games, where one host disliked Steph Curry against Chris Paul, where the other disagreed and said that Steph had regularly cooked Chris Paul. That's quotes. Which was right. So I will say a couple things here. One, there's no need to overly simplify and make one of them right and one of them wrong. Everything is not black or white. There's many shades of gray here. To understand what the guy is saying here is saying like it is I like Steph because it is a good matchup for Steph is inane. There is no basis for that. Like I can look at some results if we want to talk about this over time, but there is no like I have seen Steph Curry put Chris Paul on. He sort of did the Matrix dive one time. I like went back on the one hand. Like that definitely happened. Yeah. But I would be shocked by any reasonable standard if we'll pick some period of time and see if Chris Paul see if Steph Curry has performed better in games against Chris Paul and the various good defensive teams he's been on. Again, this is a little tricky because it's not like we have just one. If we, I think DraftKings points per minute is a good way to do this. You don't want to do per game because blowouts factor in too much, and there's very silly. So let's look at Steph Curry games against Chris Paul in the regular season in the last 5 years. We have 10 games for comparison. So now we will look at just Steph Curry over the last 5 years. All right, so Steph Curry, DraftKings points per minute in games with Chris Paul on the court the last 5 years. He's averaging 1.15 DraftKings points per minute in those games. That's 10 games, 341 minutes, 391 DK points. Fairly decent sample, and that's going to be way lower than his average over those years, which was in those same period of time, 1.43 DraftKings points per minute. So, yes, the guy who said, like, I like Steph Curry because this is a decent match, which it sounds like he's saying, again, I don't have the best analysis here. But A, don't think black and white. B, don't be so results-oriented. C, yes, the guy who said that Steph Curry cooks Chris Paul wrong. And then, like, and again, this is past data isn't incredibly relevant, but you also have Wiggins out and Poole out and Damian Lee out, and like so there's just going to be even more attention thrown on Steph Curry by a really good defensive team, including Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul's there's just a lot of variables here. Chris Paul's minutes with Booker back tend to trend down. They've talked about that a lot. Like there's a strong negative correlation between Chris Paul's minutes and Devin Booker being available and actually playing. I like Devin Booker quite a bit here. But yeah, long story short, it's Steph Curry, who's one of the half dozen most talented offensive basketball players in the history of the game. Yes, he can put up 70 fantasy points against Chris Paul, but against the Suns. But it's not by any means a good spot. He's going to be low owned. He should be low owned. Neither the pace nor it's an important game for seeding and standings. This is their third matchup this year. I think they split the first two. But yeah,
they did indeed.
Okay, so that's what I guess someone took the time to preload a question. So there's my answer to the question. And apparently everyone is so compelled by what I'm saying that we're talking about chicken sandwiches in the chat.
Yeah, the Lord's chicken, actually. I think our buddy Javi got a little Chick-fil-A gift card for Christmas. So
that's nice. I went through the chicken sandwich retinue in my most recent week trip up to New Hampshire to the SuperDraft offices. SuperDraft, we have benefits programs, so they feed me when I'm on the road. And I had the Chick-fil-A, I had the Popeyes. I really went through.
Did you go spicy?
I did one of each. I did a classic and a spicy.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I try to again, database decisions. I don't know how I don't play Harden and LeBron in every lineup tomorrow. Worrisome for sure. Well, again, it has a lot to do with what you want as a player. Do I think that I think those are fine plays. I think you're going to have 60% on James Harden and 30% on LeBron James. I think those numbers are not wildly off either way. So in a way, feel free to like go with your gut. Like if someone told me I'm going to play 0 James Harden, I'd be like, that's balls. You're not going to win very frequently. When you do, you're going to win a lot because it's going to be the most. I think LeBron actually costs 100 more than Harden, but people are going to spend 10-7 on him. And if he pulls a Jokic on Wednesday type deal, yeah, you're going to win a lot of money those times. So I don't have strong takes on Harden or LeBron because I think they're about appropriately owned. I suspect LeBron, if he's as low as I think he is a little under-owned. I think Harden's about where he should be. Can you talk a bit about Porter and Payton? Yeah, let's get into some Warriors value. We got ourselves some $4,200 Gary Payton, the lesser, and some Otto Porter. The lesser.
What a dig.
No, I just
you're actually
just means correct. Junior. I'm just talking about like Plutarchs and
the lesser.
Like, you know, it's like your Trojan War. You had Ajax, Ajax the lesser. Anyway, so yeah, you have the lesser Otto Porters and the lesser Gary Paytons. They're both like juniors. I'm just saying. I need to step up.
They are both juniors, and they are both great plays, in my opinion, on this slate, Eddie. Both of those guys.
When you lose, I have them for 29 and 31 minutes or something, and at 39 and 42, great is a bit stronger than I would have them. I think I would have them both around 9s. But talk to me why you think they're both great plays. I'm going to listen to you while I enjoy this Twix bar.
And to me, it's just the minutes and the opportunity here. I personally don't think Iggy gets out there tomorrow. They do have enough bodies where they don't need him to continue aggravating that knee. And I think he's almost like during the regular season kind of almost taking that Udonis Haslem role from a couple years ago, right? Where he would actually get out there every couple games. And maybe that was more than a couple years ago for UD. But I know you remember that time. I think that's kind of the role he's taking on this team, at least for the regular season. And so I just think it's going to be a whole lot of those two guys. You're going to get some JTA. I think Bielitsa is also an interesting value.
Yeah, Bielitsa is the interesting one.
But I absolutely love both of those guys in this spot. And I think, Gary Payton could very well get some blowout time here. So I think he's really safe. And Otto Porter has just shown this upside. I mean, going back to his days with the Bulls and the Wizards, when he gets minutes, like he's I'll say good fantasy producer.
Yeah, he's a good player. And again, both the Suns and Chris Paul have more on-ball above the break defense. No one's going to stop Steph Curry, but I think it's more, and someone said game per game, how did that break out for like the whole Curry Chris Paul thing? Here are Steph Curry's regular season DraftKings point totals per game and minutes against Chris Paul in the regular season, which there's not a lot of cooking here. We got 33 minutes and 38 fantasy points, 36 minutes and 23 fantasy points, 37 minutes and 35 fantasy points, 31 minutes and 38 and a half fantasy points. That's more than one per. Those are the 4 games in the regular season that Steph has played against Phoenix since Chris Paul got there. So he hasn't gotten to 40 fantasy points yet. Again, I haven't projected for more than 40 fantasy points. So I'm not like riding this into just to point out that someone's being like, this is a savaging. If you go back and then look at, you have your one Thunder game where he played against Chris Paul, where they're both active at the beginning of the year before Steph got hurt. 40 and a half. Then you go back into Rockets games, 42, 52. That's tolerable. 36, 50, 37. Now, so many variables have changed here. More for the worse than for the better, but you do have more Steph ceiling when he is carrying so much of the team. And, Wiggins is out as well, and he's obviously had some massive ceiling games this year. But I am more inclined to think he is deferential to guys who can make an open three, Reed, Otto Porter Jr., a little bit Gary Payton, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I don't think I differ too much from that. I did lose Eddie about 10 minutes ago. I've been talking about how most of these streams I'm losing the audio and video sync.
Really?
It went out about 10 minutes ago. And yeah, it's stuff I want to connect with you, buddy.
Well, all I care about is, am I frozen in a position in which my hair is? Because yesterday you had me frozen like I was filleting a chicken finger, even though at the time it was a gourmet cookie. But I was like this for like 20 minutes for you, apparently.
Did you see some of the profile pictures in chat pop up of that? The Eddie with the chicken nugget cookie?
No.
Yeah, they're out there. I don't see them right now. But there he is. There it is.
I don't see. Where is this? Which chat are you looking at? I don't see it in our NBA.
Ours.
I don't
see Josh popping up there.
I don't see. Oh, that's nice. That's me collating. Okay, that's really nice. You guys are very flattering. I was not eating chicken tendies. That was a gingerbread cookie with buttercream frosting that just had the strong physical resemblance of a chicken tender. We're after lock in any number of ways, or 11 hours before it, so I don't mind spending some time on the bullshit.
How about this Phoenix side, though? Because Chris Paul's price coming down, but not to a level, in my opinion, where it needs to be for me to play him in this scenario. Devin Booker, more attractive to me on FanDuel. We already talked about his 7.6 price tag over there. I think DeAndre Ayton is my favorite way to go here if I have to get to a Phoenix player. But none of these guys standing out as priorities for me to get into one lineup. And I think, if it's not one of those top three studs for the Suns, it's going to be McCall Bridges or Jay Crowder. I think I'm pretty much sticking with the starters here from Phoenix.
Yeah, there's no one here who ranks particularly well for me, and we don't have a lot of pending news to indicate that some massive value may open up. Now, again, there will obviously be very low ownership on just inherently looking for players who have an upside. Right, it's a Twix, so there's a lot of caramel, so I've lost the ability to create a sentence. You can't see me, but I'm struggling with caramel. I'm having a caramel struggle, and it's real. Yeah, I don't want to talk about the Nets. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen there. But anyhow, so yeah, I would be more inclined towards the studs than the value if we were going to get here. You can get to Jay Crowder, which is still a very tolerable price, but Booker for me, then Ayton, I think is where I would go. It's a tough matchup. I mean, centers have struggled, especially traditional centers, if you will, like Ayton for a while here. We just watched Golden State shut down a number of teams. Memphis, they're really tough to do much on in the interior there. So I think Booker for me first, but I don't have a lot here. I don't have an edge that I can see here. Oh my God. I'm sorry. It's time to update the sign. We're going to need to pull down that 17 back there. We're going to need to pull that 17 down.
Son of a bitch.
Take it down. Take it down. We're going to need to repair that sign.
Oh.
We had been 17 days without you talking on a stream while muted. Got him. Print that on a CD. Right there. Got him. Got him.
See, I should have done it before midnight Central, because then I could have just gone ahead and put the one up there.
You might have had yeah.
Fuck. God damn it. Merry Christmas, everybody. Good night.
I should get a point on the board. All right, go.
What about, McCall Bridges 5-1, Jay Crowder in the low 4Ks there. Any interest for you?
I got nothing. I went back. I looked at some of the earlier previous games. I looked at this guy's going to guard this guy and expect a ton of turnovers. I looked at a big difference in it's just not like you can Cam Johnson, who's getting a couple extra minutes and being a little more productive. I don't have anything here where I feel like at the end of the day, and we're 75 minutes into the show, that I can make a strong against the field recommendation up or down on anyone. So, Booker, you're telling me I got to go somewhere here. After that, Ayton or Crowder is value. Mm-hmm. You can always play McCall Bridges. You can always play, Chris Paul. But again, $9,000 or whatever the Chris Paul price is these days. It's a little tough to stomach. They just don't project that well. So they're going to be owned approximately where they should be owned at 3% or something. I do like these plays a little more than I like their similarly priced earlier in the day. I like the nocturnal players more than the crepuscular players. Oh, God. Sorry, I just used crepuscular in a sentence correctly. I know you can't see me right now, but I may or may not be lightly touching myself. Lightly in a way that I'm not full tubing, but it's definitely slightly inappropriate over here. Not full tubing, but definitely enjoying my own. I'm enjoying the smell of my own verbal farts. I think it's yeah. So I got nothing. Like I can sit here and talk about these guys for a while. I'm like, well, I think Landry Shamet should get between 18 and 21 minutes. That has a lot to do with the game flow and whether or not. Like I just think definitely might worth
it. Oh man, I'm getting it from all sides right now.
What was?
I can't believe the streak ended on Christmas.
What was that? Yeah, I was about to say. What was the tube sock joke? No, Jeffrey Toobin. I may be getting this wrong here, but a man named Toobin who works for Cable News Network for CNN. You know, those damn socialists. Anyway, he was on a Zoom call, not a live call, not a public call, with a number of fellow employees earlier this year, and decided that would be a good time to start masturbating. Just on a call with like, hey, we'll have our 2 p.m. call and we'll talk about editorial and who's watching that crisis in Qatar and what's going on with that oil well. And just Jeffrey, who's a well-respected journalist in his 50s, just whips it out and starts going to town with, I don't know exactly, like that's literally everything I know. And just apparently was someone he had muted or thought they were on a, one does not know.
Producer Thomas chiming in and saying, don't forget, they did not fire him.
They did not. They said, nor do I think they should. I'm going to be honest. I'm fine with that. If this, listen, this guy had worked there for, I think, 10, 20 years, has a good reputation.
Yeah.
It's not, like, if it happens again, yes. Okay. Now we've got, but like, look, I'm the last person to throw stones when it comes to masturbating in inappropriate places.
So, okay. I'm just going to say, we'll run the tape back when I show up to the meeting on Monday morning.
Okay. I don't know if you have something like, I've never been caught. Anyway, my point is
you never know.
Yeah, it's early. We're just past midnight for you. Anyway, but yeah, that's a thing that happened. Jeffrey Toobin just decided to rub one out, and they put him on pause for a couple months, did a investigation, then they brought him back and said, so what happened? He's like, yeah, obviously I would not have done that if I realized the call was still going. Oops. And okay. And then they were like, so what's your feelings about, I don't know, Medicare in Delaware? And then they went back to work, which is obviously incredibly awkward. And like that guy has to deal with, okay, so that's who I am now. That's what I'm known for. I'm a well-respected journalist and I've done this and I'm that. And that's me now. I'm now that guy. I don't think you could have done it any better, but yeah, God bless. All right. So let's talk about
Brooklyn at the Lakers. First game in the Crypto.com Center after Keita Bates-Diop shutting.
Like Thursday started arguing, but he said they just changed the sign.
Well, let's give Keita Bates-Diop his shine. He shut down the Staples Center.
KBD shut it down, 30 points.
Yeah, 11 for 11 from the field last night in a massive Spurs blowout, which I think is maybe the first time I've ever said I really wish the Lakers beat the Spurs last night. But the visiting Brooklyn team here, no Durant, no Kyrie, no LaMarcus Aldridge. Who else we got here? No David Duke Jr., no Kessler Edwards, no Daron Sharp, no Cam Thomas.
Like we were playing David Duke Jr. and Kessler Edwards and all those guys like they were the COVID replacements. Now they're all out with COVID. So we're on to the next. That's really funny that I'm just seeing that a very fast Eddie Christmas presented by SuperDraft DFS. I've got a little hat there. I either need to grow my beard out or solicit some new artwork because it's staggeringly inactive. All right, let's talk about Brooklyn.
Yeah, James Harden 10-7 on DraftKings. Probably going to be, as you said earlier, around 60% owned there on DK. And I have no problem locking him in with all those other guys out for Brooklyn. This game, I believe, still a 1.5 point spread in favor of the Lakers. Highest over-under on the slate at 225.5. So at 10-7 and 10-2 on FanDuel, the 1x multiplier, the floor there on SuperDraft.
He's worse there. And
but still my favorite. If you're going to go 1x on SuperDraft, James Harden it is for me. And my favorite spend up, unsurprisingly, on DraftKings and FanDuel.
Yeah. So by any just projection, I think you will have him highest. Now, I tend to, if you've been following the show for a few years, there have been a number of times in which I have busted out with some truly enormous James Harden projections for various reasons. Like there were times the industry would have him at 62 and I'd have him at 69 or 71, or I came out with, and I think someone can disagree with me if I'm wrong here, that I was almost always right. I think the industry is actually a little bullish on him for a couple reasons, including his own personal conditioning, the chance that they just bludgeon the piss out of the crypto.Lakers, who are what's the word for it? Bad. Bad is the word I'm thinking. I'm like, I was nervous at the beginning of the year where they built this team, and you and I were on the air frequently, and we were like, this team's gonna be kind of shit, right? Like they're doing this thing where like literally there was 10 years and eventually the Heat and the Cavs figured out, I was like, you have LeBron, put shooters around him and people who don't need to touch the ball. And they went, we've got it, Russell Westbrook. And it's like, okay, other than the fact he can't shoot and constantly needs to touch the ball, that's what we were going for. Yeah, a little bit of a self-pat back, not just for you and me, but like everyone said this was going to not work, and they need some help here. What are we seeing on Millsap ownership? I have no idea, and it's going to matter on starting or not. I don't think he starts, and news or not. All right, we'll start with this. Who do you think starts for the Nets? And we could put this one.
I was just about to ask you.
We can put this on the board, by the way.
Sure. Let's see if we differ.
Let's see if we sure. Who do you think will start for the Nets?
Patty, Harden.
Yes.
Blake,
Yes.
Claxton.
Yes.
Bembry.
That's what I have.
I was between him and Bruce.
You're between him and whom?
Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown. Yeah. That was disappointing. That was anticlimactic. More than anything else. That's the starting five I have right now. Is the most likely. Herm's
got Bruce Brown and Necktat.
He has Necktat. Yeah, I think you're a little more likely to get Blake, but that would not shock me. But this speaks largely to the fact that there are obviously many players who they can slot in there at various points. So let me go with my newest refresher here, but yeah, it's a mess here. Harden, I currently have at about 61 DK. This is lower than 3 of the 4 other sites I've seen a number on. One other site for similar reasons had him a little bit more limited. Do you have a take on this as opposed to minutes, the game staying close, conditioning, anything else we want to get in here?
I mean, I'm not super concerned about his conditioning. He wasn't in great shape in the first place and can still go out there and put up a huge number when he's, about as close as you can get to Houston situation James Harden here. Houston sans Chris Paul, sans Russell Westbrook, etc. So, yeah, I'm with you. I got him for just over 60. My favorite spend up. And outside with all these guys coming back and Patty and Blake priced up, I don't have a ton of interest here outside of Harden. And then I think Claxton and Paul Millsap are the two kind of value-ish bigs. Like Claxton center only at 4.5 doesn't feel as good as he would, high threes certainly, but in play against this Lakers team.
Yeah, I think you've got it right. So again, we can use the baseline. Again, Harden at 10.7 is going to be around appropriately owned. I don't have I do think he is slightly overprojected for what I view as likely minutes total and difficulty winning the game and various other things, but not a back-to-back. And even a minutes projection of slightly less. I have him for a minute and a half less than other side, and a fantasy point projection of 2 or 3 less. Still makes him the best stud on the slate. So I might have him. He should be owned if you somehow amortize this out at 58% instead of those projections would make it 64. But Yeah, Blake obviously had been largely expurgated from the lineup. He had been having some knee issues, which had something to do with him pulling him. So it wasn't completely just you're bad, although he's not been great as the year goes on.
Yeah.
I think Bruce Brown is the guy we should talk about if we hear that he's getting the start. You have guard forward eligibility. You have 4,300. If he got the start, he would end up projecting for me at like 28 minutes. They can use his help on LeBron. So I think they do start Bruce Brown for that reason. I'm a little more inclined at this moment with such incomplete information to get to Bruce Brown than Bembry, even though I have Bembry starting. None of these guys do I have as particularly brilliant plays who we need to bend over backwards to get into our lineups, though. Outside of Harden, who obviously is an outstanding play, and people are already bending to get them in their lineups. Blake is interesting if he starts. I mean, this ends up being a pretty good lineup for a Lakers team again that's been pretty anemic on both sides of the ball. But we will take a wait and see what we get on lineups. I do think Paul Millsap deserves a special mention here. I have him for 18 minutes and 17 fantasy points. Some Blake Griffin's knees are didn't have any symptoms when in protocols. Yeah, no, that's some very good information from UNC. No, but Blake's knee is he had a tweak a while ago, but he's just fine. So yeah, we're gonna end up, when I project this out per minute, and I don't think anyone has a great sense of this. I have looked around, I have listened to pods, I have read what other people are writing. You're going to have a couple minutes of Langston Galloway. You're going to have like Shaq Harrison is going to play 12 to 20 minutes. Bembry is going to play 16 to 24. Wenyen Gabriel is there. Claxton is going to start and play 30, or they'll go really small and come off the bench. LeBron is proportionately better the smaller they go. So if they randomly start, you could see some weird lineups here. Like you could see them start Griffin at the 5. You could see some pretty weird things going on here. So the smaller they go, I guess would be my caveat. The better LeBron is, because you would get more LeBron at point guard on offense and center on defense, which is the best of both worlds for production. So I guess I would keep that in the back of my head. But I think that's what I got.
Well, how about the Lakers side? Because I said this on the podcast stream last night. Obviously, we talked a little bit about LeBron already. My second favorite spend up. I think that's how he's going to turn out in terms of ownership as well. Just been doing a ton for this team, especially since Anthony Davis has been out. This team needs wins, and you combine that with the fact that LeBron is maybe the guy with the most flair for the dramatics, for lack of a better term, in the NBA. I think this is a game where he's going to, really push himself and put up a good score here. But what I thought was maybe just the beers talking last night, or I guess the whiskey. I was having a little whiskey there on the stream, Eddie. Russell Westbrook on DraftKings specifically. The price is, yes, $10K. The price is still not attractive. I'll run out. I've said the Russell Westbrook 47.25 DK thing for weeks now. But on the slate at what should be pretty low ownership, I think in this game he's going, if it stays close like the total and the spread implies, or if the spread implies, I think you get 38 to 40 minutes here out of Russell Westbrook and could possibly get that triple-double bonus. And I think he's a sneaky spend up if you're running multiple lineups in tournaments.
So a lot of this is going to come into where you think he ends up being owned. I think I had him at 9%. It might have been 7 or 8 or 10 or something, but he was in the high single digits in percentage owned for me. I think that's about right to me. They have gone to a lot more sets where he is off the ball. So you have either LeBron or Rondo or Isaiah Thomas now, who's going to play 15 or 20 minutes. he's just not touching the ball enough for me. And that really heavily correlates with his and everyone else in the universe's fantasy potential. So I'm having trouble getting to Westbrook. Like I have a very projection.
No issue with that.
I have Westbrook at like 42, 43 fantasy points. Like it's bad. So I don't I that feels right to me. Like I think he's high single digit owned. I think he should be high single digit owned. I think that's about where it is. Now that means if I was building 20 lineups, I'd have 2 Russell Westbrook. I would not have LeBron in those lineups. The way to get there is LeBron twists an ankle and then you're off to the fucking races. You can play other Lakers alongside LeBron. It's fine to have some small amount of Wayne Ellington at 3.7. He can just splash a pile of threes for you, getting there. Talen Horton-Tucker, who I do prefer more in lineups that have no LeBron, 2 lineups that have LeBron. Same thing with, Melo, but matchup not as good as you might immediately think. So yeah, for me, it's Braun. I think THT may come in second for me as far as just raw points expected to be scored. Where are you? What other Lakers do you have interest in?
I mean, it's really just kind of LeBron for me. Talen Horton-Tucker and Russell Westbrook both got 8s in the DK rankings. Those are really the 3 guys that I would have interest in from this team. I think you could make an argument for IT over Wayne Ellington, but they're both just kind of like, low-owned tournament plays, and you need them, both of them, to hit shots to get you there at their high 3K price tags.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any need for them to go so big that you're going to randomly get to like DeAndre Jordan value. Like people are talking about value a lot, and we're gonna get to Sterling Brown in a minute. I would probably IT2 over Rondo. I would probably Ellington over IT2 though. That's about it on this team. I don't think you think of Melo as a value guy at 4.8K, and he's going to play 20 minutes anyway, maybe 24.
Yeah. Well, let's go to Dallas at Utah then. The late night hammer on our Christmas slate tomorrow or today, if you're catching us on
today
Christmas
for you
morning.
Too. Today for you too.
Oh yeah, true. Merry Christmas again to everybody.
Merry Christmas.
My people in the central time zone here. Dallas, the shorthanded team in this one. No Luka, no Hardaway, no Kleber, no Burke, no Bullock, no Cauley Stein, no Josh Green, no Ja'Cory McLaughlin.
But they have Brandon Knight, so everything's okay.
And they have Theo Pinson and Charlie Brown Jr. So it's a very good Christmas.
Oh my God, I forgot about Charlie.
Mavericks.
That's great. That's really nicely done. Well done.
The big news we're waiting on here is Kristaps Porzingis been out multiple games with the toe injury. Just the latest in the long string of injuries for Tingus Pingus. If he's in, it's still tough to get to him, especially with this game. I mean, the Jazz, I think, shot up to double-digit favorites when Luka Doncic was confirmed out. So congrats to anybody who jumped on Jazz -5 last night, as Joe Metz pointed out on the podcast.
Yes.
I have Porzingis in for now, but it doesn't, to me, affect the value pieces here because they're guards and wings. And that's really going to mute the minutes of people that I wasn't already interested in, like a Dwight Powell, Moses Brown, maybe Boban get out there. But
about a little Marquise Chris.
Yeah, I think Marquise Chris is the one that I would be the most interested in. But that's
hard to get to. I have him for like 13 minutes. Like that's hard to get. If Kristaps is in, I don't think you can do it at all.
Yes, but I mean, if Kristaps is out, he got 13 minutes last night and fouled the fuck out.
Yep.
He was going to play more.
That's the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, 13-5, and I believe a steal, either a steal or a block, but was fantastic in his 13 minutes and really filling up the box score too with the 6 fouls. But you touched on Sterling Brown earlier. I think he, my favorite way to attack this Dallas team. Price came down from 4.7 to 3.9, guard forward eligible.
Which is weird because he was really good a couple games ago. Like you and I talked, I had him at a 9 at the beginning of the day, and you had him at a 10, and I'm like, wow, I don't know about it. This price if that's that good. And you're like, his price came way down. I'm like, oh shit. It really did. Like, the rebounds are a bit bullshit, and he's going out there against Utah and Gobert. So if you want to put it on the board, I will vote against the third consecutive rebound double-double for Sterling Brown.
No, you got me with the mute tonight, but you will not get me with that bet, sir. But how about Frankie Smokes?
Oh my God.
I mean, it's crazy that we have to talk about him, but 32 minutes against Minnesota 2 nights ago, or 2 games ago, I should say.
38, I think, against the Bucks.
38, yeah, because Trey Burke hit the protocols. So with Frankie Smokes likely to play mid to upper 30s in minutes here at 3-4, he's somebody that I think if you're running multiple lineups, you have to have some shares of. How much? That's up to you. I'm fine getting a healthy amount of him. I think he's going to be under-owned. I don't think he gets really run off the court in a blowout.
What pending news do we have for them? Anything other than Porzingis?
I think it's just Tingus. Let me double check though. Yeah, he's the only questionable. It's just the myriad of outs here. And Willie Cauley-Stein, I think I said this the other day, but didn't we get news on like the personal shit he was going through like last playoffs or something like that? It seems like,
but yeah,
maybe something with his daughter. All I know is like he's been out for the majority of the season with these personal reasons. So really hope that whatever's going on,
how many
Dallas out for him soon
within a lineup. So this has to do with a lot of things. So are you running back at all? Are you kind of stacking this game? Setting all that aside, if they're value players, I don't care that much. So if we get news that what would be hypothetical news here? Dwight Powell isn't going to play and Kristaps isn't going to play. Mm-hmm. So now there's a lot of windmilling of Boban, who you kind of don't count towards that limit. So like, again, when you're talking about 3K guys, if we get news that Kristaps is out, like if Kristaps is out, I think you can get the Jalen Brunson. It's not a great matchup. It's not as bad as you might think, but it's not a great matchup. And the price on him now is at, I don't even remember where the lineup
7-6
for Jalen Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it came back down. Then it was more, I think.
It was 8-5 last night.
Yeah.
Or 2 nights ago, excuse me. I get it now. We're going to be doing that the whole show. You think the Dallas situation is the best leverage point on this slate? Yeah. So we get to wait, which I like. I like building like 2v2s. So I like building like, let's say we have so we build as if Kristaps is out. So we have, let's say Sterling Brown and Jalen Brunson, which is going to cost you, what would we say? Sterling Brown 76 and Sterling Brown is 39 and Jalen Brunson 76. Yeah. So that's 11-5. And then it's like, oh, they're in. We pivot it to Gobert and, whatever, which is a little safer and not trying to take advantage there. Like, I think having I agree with Herm's statement that there is quite a bit to be done there. And again, we'll read what Herm says there. Last game and the one game with a player that truly seems questionable, not COVID related, Kristaps Porzingis. Right. Obviously, last game is hypothetically better. There'll be weird ownership based on that. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. So I think having a Kristaps is in some Kristaps lineups. Kristaps is out. Jalen Brunson double swaps. I think looking over at Utah, there's a number of interesting plays. So let's see what else we have to talk about there real quick. Yeah, I mean, very expensive Spider Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, but not out of play. Certainly going to be lower owned. I think I prefer going to Gobert here, Eddie. And if I'm going to go with a Utah guard, you kind of touched on it earlier, as a Kemba pivot at that price point, you can save $3,400 and go Mike Conley there, who can certainly put up a fine score at 6'2".
Yeah, it is a massive spot for Gobert, as a couple of people have pointed out. Again, the number is incredibly, I think he's 90. What is he? 92. All right, so that also came down a little bit because he was at 97. But all else being even, that's where I like to get. You have a real chance of a 20-20 out of him there. I think Conley is fine as a pivot, does not project brilliantly. I have him for 30 minutes and 28.5 fantasy points or something. Not particularly wonderful, but you can get there. In lineups that don't have Gobert, you can play some Hassan Whiteside. He's 37 or whatever the hell Hassan Whiteside is at, and can just randomly bang 30s or 40s. And again, this is an outstanding matchup against a Dallas team that doesn't rebound for crap. And again, as you're building these unique 2x2s, you can Jordan Clarkson. You can Rudy Gay at his price in the threes. You can Royce O'Neal at his price. So I do think I end up being a little overexposed to all these guys who are 2 and 3% owned. I like getting to little bits of Conley, Whiteside, Clarkson, Gay, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up Whiteside again. I just think he's a really interesting piece of value that should be, I would think, really, really underowned. Like, he's not going to pick up double-digit ownership, right?
Gobert?
Whiteside.
No, I think I have him at 8 or something. I'll check a couple.
I mean, this game could be ridiculously out of hand by the time the fourth quarter starts. Yeah, and with Azubuike still out, I mean, Whiteside getting some extra time here. Like, if he gets 18 to 20 minutes, he could really get on top of that.
Yeah, there's a chance if it blows the hell out, you end up with, they would have Eric Pascal out at center or something like you could end up with some weird shit out of Utah.
Yeah. Last time they blew a team out, I think it was 5 games ago. I was going through to make sure that Whiteside was getting blowout run, and he did at least, but I only went back to that one example. So yeah, Pascal could get out there. You'll probably see some like Mie Oni, I think, is back. In a blowout.
Trent Forrest, I think, is in their blowout run right now.
Would you rather Hassan Whiteside at 3.7, or would you Kevon Looney for 3.9?
Let's see. I would probably cash Kevon Looney and GPP Whiteside actually between those two guys. Like Kevon Looney, I'm going to have projected a little bit higher, but
I think that
you randomly bang a 40 out of, and I like that game a little more. So I would end up GPPing Whiteside more often.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Anything else from this last game, or we? I think we may have the end of our little trek here.
We may have come to the end of our journey together, you and I. I am through my notes. I am, so again, pay close attention. Don't forget the value of just hanging out and waiting here. Like, you want to get 2 guys in the first game. You're fine to get 3. I don't think I'm hating on 4. If your optimizer is giving you 5 or 6, I think you may be overdoing it. Keep an eye on what exactly we expect out of RJ. I mean, one of the big things is keep an eye on what we expect out of RJ Barrett and commensurately what we expect out of Kemba Walker. Any news on Delon Wright, any news on our man Cam Reddish. There's a lot to be made there. And assuming nothing weird happens there, I'm leaning on the back foot a lot, I think.
Sure. Also got, do you see the Flash challenges tomorrow?
I did. It's just top scorers plus some. I should be easily in for the second one. I don't think the third one's going to happen for me. I don't know if that one.
It'd be a tough one.
I have like 9 rares. And randomly, if the best scorers of the day are Chimezie Metu and Caron Butler, I'll be all set to take advantage of that third tier one. But
I do have a Reddish rare, so I'll be cheering for another 34-point game from Cam Reddish.
I'll take the under, but a very, very good luck to you. You and I got to talk. How many moments do you have left in your collection? I got to decide if I'm going to really take a run at the replacement pack, the trade-in.
How many moments to? The trade ticket pack. I'm at like. I mean, I have my 350 ticket still because I didn't hit the last one.
Right, because you didn't hit it last time. Now, talk to me about the math there real quick while we're live. So what we're talking about is on NBA Top Shot, you have the ability to trade in any moment for a trade ticket. And they have an upcoming opportunity in 5 days to give in 350 tickets, I believe it is, to try to get the chance of giving in 350 tickets to get basically a season 1 pack, which has a value of minimally a couple $100, I think, and maximally a fuck ton more if you hit season 1 LeBron, whatever ridiculousness.
Yeah. It looks like the $2 floor is mostly gone now.
Yeah, they're tricky. I got a few today, but I tried to buy $52 cards and I got 6 of them.
Let's
assume it's a $3 floor, so I got to spend. Let's call it $1,000. I spent $1,000. That pack worth $1,000 and hours of my time buying cards $3 a piece, one at a time.
Dude, I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm fucking, I'm so obsessed with this shit. I did it the first time. The only reason I'm not doing it again is because I have
still have the tickets from the first time. So how many moments do you have left, and what do I have to give you to just? I'm talking about saving myself. No, I'm serious. If you send me 100 worthless moments, and I go, sure, here's $250 or whatever was agreed upon as a fair price, saves everybody a lot of goddamn time.
Except me gifting 100 fucking moments on Christmas.
Yeah, but you get.
I know it don't have to be Christmas,
but you just get to. You can just like click each of them once, right? Like it's not.
I don't think you can bulk. You can't bulk. I'd have to at least copy paste it. And
yeah, but that's it's not. I don't want to say that you work for me, but you work for me, and just having some fun with you here. Okay.
I'm reading Jay's comment in the chat. He said, "Let's have these midnight streams one time a week. It's a vibe. It's certainly a vibe." And Eddie, I don't know if it's a vibe that I want once a week.
Yeah, I was about to say. I don't know. Again,
I mean, it's fun. Like it's Christmas. We're having, I'm having a great time here, but it's late, man. It's late.
Yeah, he says he's going to lock Harden, LeBron, Jang tomorrow. I don't have an issue with that. There's enough other places to get interesting, and if you're putting in a lot of lineups, like you got 5 spots left to futz around with.
Well, and we'll be, you'll be in the air. I'll be up. I got my alarm set already to wake up. Be watching.
I will
news,
try to interact in the air. Again, I believe this is an international flight, hence Wi-Fi. Hence, I'll be out there, watching stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
I do have Christmas packs to rip tomorrow already. I'm excited for it.
How many do you have? A lot of like season 3s. Do you got 20 season 3s? Or?
My plan tomorrow is to rip 4 Top Shot packs, and I have my rare NFL pack I haven't opened yet. Jeez. I have the base set that we got in that challenge last night, archive set, WNBA, and then the MGLE from this past week, and then NFL rare. So it'll be a fun day.
I'm excited for you. I'm very happy for you.
Thanks, Eddie.
Can you see me again? It looked like you were reacting to visible movements. No, I'm still stuck filleting a chicken tender.
Yeah, not quite. But yeah, you just gave me this on my screen. So okay. 15, 20 seconds ago, something like that.
I genuflect. There you go.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you. To be honest, man, a lot more engagement live on this show than I thought we were going to have.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Almost got 2 hours out of it. It's pretty good for a midnight stream.
Yeah. I think this may be Annabelle here saying, where the hell are you? Yeah, she's going to sleep.
Many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea, there lived a fair maiden who you may know by the name of Annabelle Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other love than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in that kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabelle Lee. I'm not going to do the whole
I'm going to clip that for her and send it to her as that can be her Merry Christmas in the morning or something like that.
Brilliant.
Easy B says I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. We'll see. Easy.
Right. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful Christmas. Remember, being happy in life is got a lot to do with just occasionally looking around and being content with what you got. So we all got struggles. Some of us work too hard. Some of us have a gigantic rash on our asses. Whatever particular thing is troubling you in your life right now, take a moment today. Hopefully you'll have loved ones around somewhere. Cherish them being in your life. Enjoy this day. It will never come again.
With that, everybody, I guess, Eddie, before we get out of here, it's 1:48 in the morning on the East Coast. If you're with us and you're not subscribed here to FTN, come over, give us a try for the next month. You can use the promo code FTNTV. It gets you 15% off, not just your first month, but if you stick with us through the rest of the NBA season, it's 15% off every month through the end of the NBA Finals. You get ownership projections, player projections, all kinds of tools, on-off splits, advanced DVP, rankings from Eddie and myself, the FTN NBA Daily Discord where we're answering all the questions from our subs, chopping it up. Even today we had a lot of conversation. There's not even games today, just kind of prepping for this slate and for this stream. So again, that code's FTN TV, gets you 15% off here. Come on over, give us a try. Tag Eddie and myself in the Discord when you get here and let us know that you're here because we would love to have you. Really appreciate everybody joining us. And I will talk to you guys in the morning if you're seeing this on Christmas Day. I've already been talking to you this morning. And we'll be updating the ranks throughout the slate if any news drops, any crazy starting lineup changes, etc. Eddie, safe travels tomorrow.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. So for Eddie Fear, I'm Zach Graham. Shout out Thomas, our producer extraordinaire up there in Tahoe. Hope he's not getting too snowed in up there on his Christmas vacation. Good luck, everybody, tomorrow or today, depending on when you're watching us. And as always,
let's get these beans.